started here in just a moment, so if people can find their seats. Well, it is really good to see such a large turnout this evening. My name is Scott Menzel, and I'm the superintendent of Scottsdale Unified School District. I started here on July 1st, and it is nice to be at a room where we have people to have an important conversation about the future of the 68th Street property. Tonight, you would have expected to see Dennis Rayler. Unfortunately, he is not feeling well, and he will not be able to join us, and he really regrets that because he has spent so much time working with the people in this community on this project. But in his stead, we have Dan Collinsworth, who will be able to take over that part of the meeting. In addition to all of the people that we have in the room this evening, we also have people who are participating virtually on Microsoft Teams, and I want to thank them for participating as well. And I also know that we have a number of our governing board members here. I see Patty Beckman, Julie Sanowski, Jan Michael Greenberg. I do not know if there are other board members in the room. They may be online, so I appreciate their participation and also want to acknowledge Principal Palatucci for being here as well. As I said at the beginning, this is a really important conversation. We know that people have very strong feelings, and tonight we're going to solicit your input and response using technology. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dan to begin the process to outline how we're going to proceed through the evening in order to be able to collect your feedback. And I appreciate his willingness to step in and guide the conversation this evening. Thank you, Dan.
All right, good evening, everybody. My name is Dan. I'm the project manager for Dennis for all of our bond construction projects. So tonight we're using a media called Menti, okay? So we're gonna get to that in just a second, but I wanted to first set the stage for the agenda, okay? Because I know everybody's gonna have questions. We wanna know the road that we're taking, okay? So if you look here in our agenda, we have it clearly defined that we're gonna welcome you. We're gonna let Phoenix Rising talk about their design. We're gonna solicit your feedback on that design. Then we're gonna talk about their community presentation, and then we're gonna we're gonna grab your responses and your feedback on that portion as well. And then we're gonna go ahead and move to a vote. Now this vote, I'm gonna be very clear about this, okay? What this does is it helps us get that feedback from you, the community, to inform our governing board members so they can make the decision going forward, okay? So I want you guys to know the road that we're headed. You know, this is where we're going. So to get there, we're gonna use a software called Menti. This is a web-based software. So if you have your smartphone, you can either pull out your smartphone and pull out your camera app and either point it at the screen, or if you have an agenda, point it at the QR code on your agenda. And if that doesn't work, you can go to menti.com, and that code is what you're going to use to get in. Now this presentation will be tracking right along, okay, with how we're doing here. Now for those individuals that are here that don't have a smartphone, can I get you to raise your hand real quick? Okay. So what I'm going to ask, I have my assistant, Gatlin Farrington. He's here somewhere. There he is. So what we're going to do is we're going to get your feedback and we're going to get it written. Okay, so we want to make sure we capture that feedback as well. Okay. So if you have an agenda, sir, you can also, it's the same code on your agenda as well. So if you have a paper agenda, it's the same exact code. So it should take you to a screen that says voting is closed. Yep, so if it's taking you to a screen that says voting is closed, that's perfect. That's what it needs to go to. It's just going to track with my presentation. Yes, ma'am. So the likes aren't what we're tracking. We have some other questions that are going to be involved in it later. Yes, at the end. Yes, ma'am. All right, so if we're good on that point, so it should be coming to this. No. Who's having problems? Anybody having problems? Okay, with your smartphone? This is a part of the way we're getting the feedback. Yes, ma'am. So not only voting, but feedback as well. So this is how we're going to guide it. Yes, ma'am. What's that, ma'am? So if you don't have your smartphone, Gatlin, go ahead and raise your hand. Gatlin in the back. If you don't have your smartphone, Gatlin in the back is going to be the person where you give your vote to. Okay, so we have extra papers. We'll get that. Don't worry, your voice will be heard. Okay. All right. Do we feel sufficiently covered on this part? I don't want to move further ahead if we're not ready. Okay. All right. So this next one, it's going to ask you to put your name and your address. Go ahead and put that in. What's that, sir? We'll get there. I showed you the roadmap, sir. We'll get there. Okay. And then our next one. So, and if I could still get everybody's attention, I know we have a lot of other conversation going around. Part of the reason we're getting these demographics is just to understand who is here. Okay, so we really want to make sure we're hearing the community members that are here for that 68th Street property. So as you can see, we already have live voting. You can see how many people are here that are neighbors of that 68th Street campus. So that's the kind of stuff that we, as a district, are trying to get for feedback. Sir, yes, if you have an agenda, and it's also at the top. Yep. All right, so we have a lot of participation. This is good. This is exactly what we need. All right, your next question that's going to be on those sort of demographics and fact-finding questions are going to be the 3 things that you like about that 68th Street campus already. Listen, we're trying to put a little bit of comedy into it, okay? No, I'm just kidding. Got to keep the levity. Here we go. Yes, ma'am. So again, if you don't have a smartphone, what I would ask is that you use your agenda, and you're going to see my assistant Gatlin Farrington in the back. So, and we're going to get to points in this presentation where you'll have open answers for questions, and we're going to be able to solicit those as well. You can, sir, but it's really just going to be a name and a yes or a no, unless you want to do all of it. Correct. Yeah. All right. So we're getting a whole lot of feedback, which is good. All right. And what are the top 3 things you would like to see at the property, which is a little bit of a different question? Yes, sir. Good feedback. So that'll be a topic that we can have for discussion later, sir. Absolutely. So apparently we have somebody that wants a 5-story home there. 1 townhome though. That would be very interesting. Okay. So now you can see this is the reason why we're utilizing this technology is so that way we can see the feedback in real time. And it's a lot easier for us to hear your voices instead of, getting the vocal voice from everybody all at once, because there's no way that I or Dr. Menzel or the Phoenix Rising team would be able to get this and see this and hear this unless we did it in this way. Okay? So now that we have this feedback, all right, what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Tim Reister. Tim, if you want to come up, grab your microphone, and here's a clicker, sir. And Tim's going to take us for a little bit, and then it'll come back to me. Talk to you guys in a minute.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for volunteering your time to be here and to consider our proposal for the neighborhood. And I can visually see that there are people with differing opinions, and I saw that up here. So I just want to say up front, we very much respect you all. And it's okay if it turns out you don't want us in your neighborhood. That's okay with us. We don't want to force ourselves in anywhere. We want to be somewhere in a neighborhood where the majority of the people will appreciate what we're trying to do for the kids. So what we want to do this evening is just share with you what we'd like to do for the kids and why, when we were speaking to the city of Scottsdale, they pointed us to your neighborhood because the property had been sitting empty since 2014. And they thought it should be something that we would consider because we were offering to pay 100% of the costs to come in and create a place for kids to use. So we're going to do it somewhere. Your neighborhood is actually perfectly located for us, and we're hopeful that maybe that is a possibility. But we're going to share with you the plans today. We're going to share with you what we've learned from your neighbors, and we're going to ask for more input. And if it turns out that the majority of the people in the neighborhood and the Scottsdale Unified School District would like us to stay and develop this area, we're going to use all the input that we're gathering, not only from the Vision Committee that met with us on multiple occasions, but also from all of you here. So thank you for your time. And I wanted to share all that up front because I know that in some of the previous meetings, there's a lot of passionate opinions, and we really appreciate that. But I want you all to know that it's your neighborhood. We respect you, and we know you love each other. And I hope we can have a really enjoyable discussion together this evening. So I am one of the founding co-owners of Phoenix Rising FC. And Phoenix Rising FC is Arizona's highest level professional soccer team. We created the team back in 2016. We actually purchased a team that was playing out in Peoria, and with a goal of making it much more successful and making professional soccer something that could be eventually at the level of the Phoenix Suns and the Coyotes and the Cardinals for the whole state to enjoy. We are fortunate to be well on our path for that type of success. We currently play in the second division of professional soccer throughout North America. And out of the 36 teams in our league, we have been the most winning team of all those teams for the last 4 consecutive years. And I'm really proud of that because the people in Arizona are the reason that that's succeeding. To sustain an organization like that, people have to support the team. They have to come and cheer and make the players feel valued. And so that's what we're doing on the professional side. But when we first started the organization, we wanted to make sure we were also sharing soccer with kids. And what we found is that many sports are dangerous for kids, but soccer is one that people don't need a lot of money to play. All you really need is a ball, and you need a little bit of space. And it's something that teaches kids the value of fitness. And we found that kids who are exercising multiple times a week have a better opportunity to sit and focus and study in school. They also have more interest in better nutrition and more nutritional foods because their bodies start craving healthier things. So our goal throughout the state of Arizona is to create more opportunities for kids to be healthy. We don't earn anything on it. It's part of a nonprofit organization. You're going to hear more from Chris Brown, who's run the nonprofit organization, which is now known as Phoenix Rising Youth Soccer, a little later in the presentation. The organization he runs for us was founded 40 years ago as a nonprofit here in Arizona. And in 2018, in May of 2018, the board of that nonprofit agreed to combine with our charitable organization as a 50-50 joint venture. And that's why what used to be known as Arcadia Scottsdale Soccer Club for the last 40 years became known as Phoenix Rising FC Youth Soccer Club. That's a little of the backstory. Chris is going to give you more detail on that. What we'd like to do now is just touch on some of the things we learned from your neighbors who donated quite a bit of their time to come to the visioning committee meetings. And I wanted to share with you the dates that these meetings took place so you'd be aware. The very first meeting we had was similar to this. It was an open call where anybody was invited from the community. The turnout was smaller than this. We learned a great deal from that first meeting. As a result of that meeting, people who attended who were volunteers were invited by the Scottsdale Unified School District to participate on a visioning committee. And I recognize some of the people who are here who participated on that committee. And we had meetings, as you'll see, on January 21st, March 18th, and April 15th. And that committee gave us their input. And we would come back with revised plans and see if those were addressing some of the concerns and ideas that they had. And what you're going to see today is the culmination of all that input and the work of our architects. And our architects are here to meet you today. Krista Shepard and Steve from Gould Evans. They've done a lot of the work that you've seen at Arizona State University, and they know how to design in the Sonoran Desert. We're very, very proud to have them as our partners. And as we continue to grow Phoenix Rising, we're looking to do more and more with them. Some of you who follow what we do may be aware that we recently built, in partnership with the Gila River Indian community down at Wild Horse Pass, a brand new stadium and soccer facility. And as we look to hopefully even get to first division soccer in the future, we've had a lot of conversations with Krista and Steve and their organization about helping us design the stadium and the surrounding development that could be a part of that. So a few things they've been working with that we've learned from your neighbors. Number one, we were told the neighbors really wanted to beautify the site because they weren't happy with the condition it's in at this time. Number two, there's a small building on the site that was part of the old school, and there was a real concern among the neighbors to preserve that building and have us remodel it. And there's a beautiful tile mosaic piece of artwork that's on that building, and the neighbors ask us to preserve that and actually repair some of the components where the tiles have come off. We were asked to reopen the playground. Parking was discussed quite a bit, and we were asked if we could add more parking to the site to make sure cars aren't parked on the neighborhood streets. And we understand that. So you'll see in the architect's presentation how they've incorporated more parking directly into the site to prevent people from needing to park on the street. Managing traffic. There were a lot of questions about how to manage the traffic, who would manage it so neighbors wouldn't have to enforce that. That's something we've been working on with the city of Scottsdale. They would work with us to post signs and cite people who are not parking legally on our property. And we actually had, since our last visioning committee meeting, we had our first pre-application meeting with the city of Scottsdale, and they actually shared some ideas in our site plan where we could maybe even add more parking to it. We didn't know we could do it, but on one of the streets there on 68th, there's currently a barrier where the buses used to pull in, and there's an opportunity on that lane to maybe add some parking that would be safe and extend that barrier so people could park there diagonally and get out, and kids would be. The big issue here is safety for children. So the city was sharing some of their ideas where maybe we could add additional parking beyond the 100 spaces we have today. Mitigating light and noise. So some of the neighbors who were on the visioning committee live directly next to the property. And they wanted to make sure that when we light these soccer fields at night, that light isn't shining into their yards. And so we're working with a company called Musco Lighting. They are known as one of the top scientific lighting companies here in town. And some of the people on the visioning committee went to inspect other sites where they put in the same lighting that we are proposing to use on the site. And they came back to the last visioning committee and reported that they were very satisfied because that new LED lighting is so directional that you don't see it outside of the field space. In fact, you need separate lighting just for the parking area, lower poles and directional lighting because the fields don't even light the parking area. Providing access to the community building and playground. The neighbors wanted to make sure that although we have to lock the grass up at night when the practices are done or the games are done for the kids, they wanted to make sure they had 24 access to the playground and that they also had 24 access to the walking path and fitness path that we've proposed into the site. You'll see more about that. And then lastly, they ask us to make sure that if we're able to go forward with this project, that we would do it together. And that when these meetings were over, it wouldn't be the last time we talked. And in fact, when we get into the design review with the city, you know, they may see some things that we wanted to do with the neighbors that the city won't allow. They may require a certain kind of fencing. So when we have options, we sit down together and we make those choices together so the neighborhood can be more comfortable with the way the property turns out. And then lastly, we talked about, and this still is under keeping the neighborhood involved, we would put together an advisory board made up of people from our organization and people from the neighborhood so we can learn together and improve together as we move forward with the project. So I'd like to introduce Steve. Steve, are you going to come forward? Are you comfortable touching the mic after? I've had both of my shots, so quite a while ago. Okay, here we go.
Thank you, Tim. Yeah, so again, my name is Steve Valev. I'm an architect with Gould Evans in Phoenix, and together with Krista. Can you guys hear that? Okay, sorry about that. Again, my name is Steve Valev. I'm an architect with Gould Evans in Phoenix, and together with Krista Shepard, we've been working with Tim and Phoenix Rising up to this point. Before we get into the site, I think one of the things we want to emphasize is, in many ways, this is just a kind of a conceptual sketch, and that as if the project does proceed, we'll take your feedback and the feedback we receive from the city and really start working through the project in a serious way. So just to make the point that, you know, all of this is still open for your guys' feedback, and we're interested in getting as much feedback as possible. In a way, this just shows the site as it exists today. Just for reference, we're essentially standing at the southwest corner, looking towards the northeast corner. So this drawing just shows the elements of the site that we're planning to preserve and kind of incorporate into the site. So essentially at the top corner, the number 4, essentially at the top left corner is the existing building, which like Tim said, we're planning to preserve together with the mosaic. The existing cell tower along 68th Street, the equipment that's just north of the cell tower, and then at the top corner, the playground, which we're planning to renovate and expand. So if we just keep the same view, essentially then this is kind of the conceptual sketch like I mentioned. You know, one of the things we really tried to do with the site was to, in a way, locate the fields in such a location to where the rest of the site on all 4 sides could be left open to the community. So we kind of imagined that there's essentially kind of this linear park that goes around the entire site, and that the fence of the fields, the fence is maybe a little hard to see in this case, but the fence essentially follows where the 2 fields are, that everything outside of that fence is available to the community throughout the kind of the life of the project. So just really quickly, if we kind of go around the site, again, at the top left corner is the existing building, which we're proposing to renovate as a community space with a small outdoor space to the north of it. The existing parking lot on 68th Street, which we're proposing to renovate, but essentially keeping its current configuration and access. Then at the top corner, essentially kind of at the top right, the new playground, which shade is one of the things that we feel is really important for this site, as if anybody's walking around the wellness path or using any of the fitness equipment, that they're always in shade and they're always kind of protected from the environment. So when we get to the playground, we're proposing that there's a kind of an architectural shade in order to protect the playground equipment underneath. And then essentially on the other 3 sides, along kind of the eastern side, the southern side, and the western side, essentially this wellness path with these small kind of fitness stations along the way. And then if we look into the interior of the site, essentially everything that's within the fence at the top, the number, essentially off of the existing parking lot, is a new about 10,000 square foot, 2-story, 10,000 square feet per floor kind of office locker room building. One of the things that we're really trying to focus on is to keep the scale of that small, so it's appropriate to the scale of the houses and the surrounding context. But really, we imagine that the top parking lot, the existing parking lot, is going to be the day-to-day parking lot for the facility. And really, the additional parking to the south, or if that shifts to the west, as Tim was mentioning, that's going to be more event or kind of special occasions parking. That a majority of the parking we anticipate would happen at the north. That's essentially where the main entry, somewhere adjacent to the new building, will be. And then wherever the secondary parking is, in this case along the south, there will be a secondary entry. And then the red line down the middle just kind of designates the main point of circulation from both parking lots. Yeah, I mean, I think that's maybe most of the elements. I think if there's additional questions or in particular things that you guys want to ask about, we can cover that maybe in the questions.
for that? Okay, well, so go ahead and, yep.
Yeah, so just really quickly to go over some of this detail, again, the two main soccer fields. Again, the idea that we would remodel the existing building, preserving the mosaic, also adding a small exterior space to the north of it. Essentially, the existing parking lot has about 50 spaces, so we're essentially proposing 50 spaces at the north, and then an additional 50 spaces if we're only doing the lot to the south. Again, the idea that landscape is sort of covers the entire side. That the side, the idea is that there's not really a back side to the side. One of the things we think is important is that as somebody's walking around, they always feel they're in a generous open space, that there's never a sense that you're on the back side of the lot. So that's why we're trying to keep a very generous kind of landscape zone around all four sides. Again, the new building would mostly serve kind of small office space and locker room for the two soccer fields. And then the community access kind of, the playground, all the green space, the walking path is completely outside of the security fence. So all those elements will be open to the public at all times. Oh, I'm sorry. And then the soccer fields will be used in a scheduled kind of manner.
Thank you. That's correct. That's correct. And on the parking, a little more detail about the parking. So in soccer, in youth soccer, you don't have 11 kids playing on each team during the game until they're a little bit older, because the field's too big, for the younger kids. So the maximum amount of people that you have coming, generally a older youth team will have between 15 and 18 kids on the roster. So let's even round up to 20 for easy math. So if you have 20 on the home, 20 with the away, that's 40 kids on one field. And then the other field, 20 for the home team and 20 for the away. So if everybody came in a separate car, that's 80 cars. You have a coach for each team. You have a couple referees. So that's where we felt that 100 parking spaces. Usually people carpool, and when a family comes, they tend to come together. So that's where we came up with the calculation. The city of Scottsdale, with their proposal, if you look at this street up the side, if they have us add more parking up that side, then we'll have significantly more than 100 parking spaces. So if we split the fields up for younger kids, then they're playing 4v4 or 6v6. They don't play 11 kids at a time. You understand what I'm saying? No, that's why I use the older kids, because that's the maximum scenario. So once kids are 16, 17, 18, and they're playing on the biggest field, then you would have a maximum of, and 20's high. But a roster, how many kids, let me ask the executive director of our youth program, how many children are on a normal 4v4 roster or a 6v6? 6 kids would be on a 4v4 roster. And how many would be on a 6v6 roster? Or a 7v7? It'd be 10 kids. So even if we divide the field up, you don't have more kids than you have when you have the oldest age group of kids. No, that's not what we're saying. We're sharing with you that the maximum amount of players that you would put on the field at a time would be a roster, and I use 20 as a number because it's easier math. But if we did 20, then some kids couldn't even dress for the game and sit on the bench because the state only allows 18 at a time. Okay, so let's use 20 because it's like the highest number. We're still at 80 cars. You see what I'm saying? That's why I use that as an example. Sure. Yes. So Salt River Fields is a group of fields that we rent. And one of the reasons we enjoy that location is because they have so many fields. So they do have more kids coming through because they have more fields operating. This location can only accommodate 2 fields. So we just won't have that same amount of density because we don't have the space for the kids to play here. This is a much smaller soccer park. We actually are currently operating. Salt River signed an agreement with us, and we have 2 youth fields operating that are this same size right now at Solana. So we know what the traffic is because we're currently operating that.
So
I'm sorry? No, we're still operating with the Pimas. We're there for the long term. As soon as they can, we would love to do that. We would love to do that. The challenge is there are a significant number of kids who'd like to play and there's not enough space. So we're looking for more space. And it's okay. If you don't want us in your neighborhood, you can vote no tonight. That's okay.
So Tim, hold on
Yes,
real quick.
go ahead.
So folks, please, all right, so I understand there are a lot of passionate opinions, okay, and I get it. We want those opinions. We need that feedback. But the reason why I shared our agenda and our roadmap tonight was so that way we could have a respectful, articulate, and really good dialogue. And the more that we interrupt and the more that we go, oh, hold on, excuse me. No, sir. Hold on. So, hey, Tim, can you go ahead and borrow this quick?
Yeah.
Hold on. So as we go through this and as Tim goes through it, hold on, everybody. Again, we want your opinions. We want your feedback. That's the reason why we're using this software, so we can catalog this feedback, so we can give it to our board members, so that way they can have more information. Okay? So we'll get to that question. Okay, I promise we will get to it. Okay, but if we start going not off the rails, but if we start going down rabbit holes, we're not going to get through the entire presentation. It is a legitimate question, but it's just, we'll get there, I promise. Okay? Well, I apologize that it feels that way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep, just a second.
So let me go through the rest of this and then I'll answer that question. I just wanted to show you the elevation here so you could see the architect's design of the children's playground. And they're looking at a very modern style of shade structure, much larger, in making sure that visually it's pleasing for neighbors. So when they look at this, it's not, some big piece of aluminum or something. It's an attractive area for the kids, and it's a larger playground than the kids have had. We also asked Musco Lighting to share an image of some of their existing lights in Arizona so you could see how directionally these are focused onto the field. You can see here that they have 8 light posts lighting 1, 2, 3 fields here. So we would only have 2 fields. This is 3. And we wanted to share, if you wanted to see some fields, where you could see them. Rittenhouse Park is where some of the vision committee members went and looked at the fields to see the lighting. And then you can see that Notre Dame went through a lighting process with the city of Scottsdale. And when they were approved to change their lighting, they went to Musco Lighting, and the neighbors up there have been happy with that. Phoenix Country Day School also recently put in Musco Lighting. So this is exactly what we'd be using here. Mm-hmm. And that's why the directional lighting, we understand that it's so important. It's more expensive for us to use this type of lighting. So the design the architects have created, having that exercise path and the trees and then the parking on each side, We wanted to make sure we didn't have any fields up and close and adjacent to the fencing for the neighbors. So there is quite a bit of a barrier that would prevent any light from the field spilling over. Did you hear that, Steve? So he said 40 to 60 feet would be the distance from the edge of the field to the closest wall. How long is the field? Oh, they would practice till 9 p.m. Till 9 p.m. Lights would be out at 9:30. And Friday nights, usually there isn't practice because games are on Saturdays and Sundays. But sometimes if there's a game on a Friday night, the lights might be on, but usually they would not on a Friday night.
Okay.
So I see some of you are participating and putting some additional items that the architects could consider. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, I can't hear you because other people are speaking. Light pollution? Yes, thank you. That's a question for you.
5.
Yeah, that's 5. The architect said that's 5 stories high, a 70-foot high pole. That's correct. Monday through Thursday,
We hear
and then
you,
on the
sir.
weekends,
Okay.
usually they wouldn't be on in the evening. Yes, ma'am. Thank
Well,
you. Thank you, ma'am.
Hold on. Oh, don't leave. So actually, wait, ma'am, wait. So this is the feed. No, hold on. So this is the feedback that we need. So I understand your position. I am grateful that you're sharing it, but this is the feedback that we need so that I can take this to my director, Dennis, and we can take this feedback and give it to the governing board. Okay. So I understand. Hold on, please. Hold on. So the continual saying of we don't want this, we don't want this. I want you to understand we hear you. Okay, but repeating it is not going to get us through tonight so we can solicit all the feedback we need. Okay, so I want you to know that. So we're listening and we're hearing you. Yes, ma'am. And that's fine. All I'm asking is that if you could, please stay because we need the feedback. Because that way we can go to our board and say, this is what we have. We have passionate opposition on both sides. And if we have people. Okay. And thank you for your feedback. Yes.
You want to?
So
there were some questions over here
Yep.
too that we can.
All right.
This couple over here, ma'am.
Yep.
There is an agenda this evening. We all have a copy of it. If we could just be respectful, let them speak. I understand there's a lot of people, there's 5 red shirts in front of you that clearly don't want to steal. There's a lot of opinions in the room. Just pipe down, be respectful, hear what they have to say, and vote. Please, put the hands down, and let's just let it talk.
How respectful has it been out of the community, or the reporter probably doesn't even know about this still?
I asked this was my last opportunity to vote tonight, and I was told no.
That is
So, I have heard enough of what
okay.
I feel is my
Okay.
best interest is not my best interest, it's my neighborhood and
Okay.
And so, again, I am not trying to be disrespectful happiness with it, because we don't want to be overcrowded like we're already being done in the community with families and whatever else. Now, everyone's got their own opinion, I respect that, but honestly, I want to know if I have an opportunity to vote another time and not have to go through the entire presentation, because honestly, it's not what you expect from me. And that's why I can't
You say no. Maybe you'll say
So,
no.
folks, again, we're going to get through our agenda. We're going to have time for your I promise. We're making time for you. That's why we're here. Okay. So yes, ma'am. So in the very beginning and on your agenda, what you'll see is we have a feedback portion that we're calling vote. And all that vote means is that we're going to tell our governing board, hey, we have this amount of people that say yes, they would like to see the project move forward, or this amount of people that say no, we would not like the project to move forward. And so
if you leave now, we won't get your no vote.
so that's why I would ask that you stay, so that way we can have the most informed. So we're gonna keep moving. I hear you. Okay. So as we've gone through, and this is what we're seeing. Yes, and that's what we're trying to do. And that's why we're trying to hold all questions until the question portion, because then it's not streamlined. So as we look here, so this is the stuff that you guys are saying that you want on Mentimeter. Okay, that's the software that we gave you guys in the very beginning. So we see most of it's community health and fitness, a new public playground, 17% for soccer fields, a public community building. So that's where we see these numbers coming in. And again, all of this is going to come into a report where we're going to be able to give that to the governing board so they can make an informed decision. So here, if you have your smartphone, okay, go ahead and populate those questions so then we can answer them in a very, what's the best way to put it, in a very articulated and a very organized fashion. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. That's the whole reason why we're here. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And we'll have, so the questions that we pull here, we will absolutely have discussions. Yes, ma'am.
So if we feel like something will be pulled over our eyes about something that's being said, slide by slide, like I do.
Okay.
You have to wait till the very end. But we know it's.
No, ma'am. So right here, if you look, we have ask any design related questions. So anything that we have gone over in these past slides, this is the time for us to have that discussion, to ask those questions. And that's why I'm asking that we get to this point and we have that, okay? Yep, so I have, all right.
Oh, that's.
And so Dr. Menzel just pointed out, we do have over 50 people online. So not only do we have it here, we have 50 people online as well. Yes, ma'am. They're submitting questions via Microsoft Teams and via here. That's okay. Go right ahead. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead. Okay. So the question. Okay. So. Okay.
Yeah, it's not parallel.
So
it wouldn't be parallel parking.
Okay. So hold on, folks. Let's let her ask her question, please. Yep. So what is the question, ma'am? Okay, so the question, so just so everybody can hear, especially the people online, the question is, what are we gonna do to fix the parking? So I'm gonna give that over to Tim and
Yeah.
then his consultant.
We have a traffic expert here, Paul Basha.
Yep.
Some of you may know Paul. Paul lives in your neighborhood. He's a traffic expert. He used to be the director of traffic at the city of Scottsdale. And Paul can help answer the question. And by the way, the parking along 68th was actually suggested to us by the city. So we didn't have it in the plan. But anyway, here's Paul.
Hold on, folks. Okay, yes. Ma'am, yes. We will, ma'am. Folks, we will get to you, but the more we have the outburst, the slower it's gonna go. We're gonna get to you, I promise. Go ahead, Paul.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you. Good to see you all this evening. Your question about parking, we are in the process of developing the plan for the property. We don't have a final plan yet. As Tim said, the city of Scottsdale suggested that we include some angle parking on 68th Street, protected by a median. So cars would not pull out of. We are not suggesting pulling the cars out into 68th Street. The idea is there would be a one direction aisle separated from 68th Street by a median. It would be using the same lane that's currently a right turn lane on 68th Street. That's the concept. We don't have anything to show you yet tonight because we just met with the city earlier this week, but that will be developed and will be finalized and we can show it to you then. And we intend to do that, sir.
Okay, so you go.
No, wouldn't take out houses at all.
I'd say this, every car parked outside that area, charge them $100 per car every time it does. Now, they may have 2 kids playing on the field or 200 kids, doesn't matter. They can have all the big 3 buses of kids, or you can have 1,000 kids. But the day that you're parking on the street, you can cut their activities. You can have a covenant of use agreement where you can cut their activities to just 2 teams, period. If they're violating the parking fees, that is serious. It's going to hurt housing values for many people. There's a 100-year-old lady who lives within 100 yards of that site. She's probably going to suffer. My grandson's probably going to get hit by a car because of all the density of parking. And you know what? I got hit by a car when I was young, running out to chase a ball. That's what happens with parking on the street. There's a safety issue here which is very real, and if you're really concerned about it, I don't blame you. I feel the same guys, I understand. I've dealt with you in my life. I get it. I don't blame you. You have a role in this. But you can say, no, there's no more than this many cars coming in. After that, it's done. And I don't care how many teams have to add or subtract, it doesn't matter. But I'm coming into this, and that's what I expect the SUSD to get their act together and come up with a use agreement, covenants, and have a team. And you do your air quality control, which is obligated under state. You do your safety review, because Rural Metro, who I participated with for 10 years, would have done it, and they would already have better answers, because I've seen your name associated for so long with this. You can have a better answer if you wanted. If you were serious about this, if this was a real business, you would have your answer. But this is exactly how many kids, this is what we see. Every site you can go to around the state, everyone complains about parking. This is a unique.
Sir,
Be honest. Just be honest and transparent, and let's have covenants to control their activity later on. To kick them off, they've been lying for us.
So thank you for your opinion, sir. Absolutely. So just so everybody knows the process. So anything that we do, okay, and let's just play the hypothetical. So we go through, we do it, and it gets to the point where it goes to the city. Okay, the city of Scottsdale, all the plans, all the traffic, all the construction plans, everything would go through the city of Scottsdale. So it is completely, so that's. Well, sir, if that's what you're worried about, then make sure you participate in your local elections. So, yeah. Well, sir, we hear. So
I'm talking about due diligence for parking. Okay, sir. It's over there, off of Hayes. And it's 2 fields, same setup, more or less. They're not side by side, but they're next to each other. 63 cars, and there's 14. Are you not the same coach that said that they gave you, Phoenix Rising gave you 0 people to Coronado High School?
Yes, yes.
Are you not the same?
so hold, folks, please, let's be,
Yes or no? They fed 0
Okay.
players in Coronado.
Sir.
But I'm okay, exactly. Okay.
Jose.
0.
Okay, Jose, hold on. Sir, please. Folks, it doesn't, sir, gentlemen, please, we don't need to raise our voices. We don't need to get loud, okay? We can have a respectful dialogue, and that's what we're here to do. Okay, so there was another question. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Let me repeat the question just to make sure everybody else could hear it. Her concern was that there have been a lot of apartments and condominiums constructed along McDowell Road and along 64th Street. And, oh, put it higher? Oh, thank you. I'm sorry. Thank you very much, Amber. Sorry. Thank you, Lisa. The question was, many apartments and condominiums have been constructed south of this property in the McDowell 64th Street area, McDowell 68th Street area. And her concern was, will 68th Street be able to handle that traffic? And yes, and she just, yes, her concern, what she's added to that is that there's more development planned for the vicinity of 64th and McDowell. Those situations are the responsibility of the city of Scottsdale. I don't work there anymore. This is a Scottsdale Unified School District property, and this is a Phoenix Rising proposal for consideration. So I really can't speak. Sure. Okay, your basic question is, so you're again, your concern is how is 68th Street functioning now? And with more development that's going to increase the traffic on 68th Street. I simply cannot answer that question. I don't have the data in front of me. Okay, well, thank you for the question, and we'll do our best to be able to answer it in coming weeks. But
So let me take this a little bit. So whenever we do, so again, my name is Dan. I'm the project manager for our new builds and our reconstructions and our rebuilds. So whenever we do a school rebuild and we go to the city and we talk to them and we sit down with them and we look at the plans, part of that is always a traffic study. So right now we're doing Kiva and we had to do traffic studies on Kiva. So whatever we do here at this property, if the proposal goes through to consideration, right, and it goes to the city, the traffic studies will have to be done. The city will have to sign off on those. The permits for construction will have to be signed off by the city, just like all the other construction processes that we go through. So I hear your concern, and I want you to know that it's not just the. Yeah. And I completely understand. Thank you for the feedback. Absolutely. Yes, ma'am. You've been very patient. Okay. I'm going to go back to the design. You tell me when to stop, okay? Okay, so just so everybody can hear, two parts to this question. The first part is, this is just a synopsis. What are the buildings for? Just the 1 2-story building. So what's the 2-story building for? And the second question, correct. So the new build. And then the second question is this going to be a pro field where pro players are playing on, correct? Hold on.
Yeah.
Guys, hold on.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. The 2-story building, our dream has been to have the youth staff, the administration for the entire youth club at fields. And this location is a really perfect location for them to be with 2 fields where Chris and his staff could be there every day. And that's where they'd go to work every day. So he and the few people who work in the youth administration would come there. And we thought that was also helpful because they could help administer access for the neighborhood of the community room, the community building. How many people work for you every day, Chris? 10 people. So let me answer the rest of your question. Your second question was, what else would we have? Why would we have that building? We want to have more bathrooms, and we want to have locker rooms for the kids. And we can't put the small building, it can't just be all bathrooms. There'll be restrooms in it, the small building, but we really want that to be a community meeting space. So the larger building, the whole bottom floor, would be restrooms and locker rooms for the kids. And part of the issue there, it's really important when the kids come and they're using the bathroom and changing their clothes that we protect them from any community space. So it's okay. It's okay if you don't like my answer, but that's the real answer. That's what we're planning. That's what we're planning. Right. Right. Yes. Yeah. So let me explain. That doesn't. It doesn't happen because kids right now play in city parks that are underfunded and they don't have the facilities for them. What we're trying to model this after the European model of soccer for kids, where there are proper facilities, where there's a whiteboard where kids can learn and they can study, where we can play films from their games and they can see what they did last weekend in their game. And we need indoor space to do that. So that's what the downstairs would be. You asked if the pro team would train here. The answer is no. Phoenix Rising has 3 fields of its own that we just completed at Wild Horse Pass. There is an opportunity, and I want to just share this up front. We don't know if this would happen or not. Major League Soccer is very interested 3 weeks of the year to come here for spring training. There just aren't fields for them. Because we know all those people, if we had 2 fields and the neighbors were okay for 3 weeks to have a pro team training in the morning, they could, but we could say, no, the neighbors aren't comfortable with it. We'll only do it with the youth. So, and that's just, the same way the city of Scottsdale supports spring training for baseball. It's good for the economy if we grow Major League Soccer spring training, but it doesn't have to happen at this site. There are no bleachers. There are no bleachers or anything like that here. There won't be a stadium here. This is just
So,
a training location.
Again, sir, please keep your cool. We don't need the outbursts, okay? Okay. Yep.
It's just like, we see it coming, and you're gonna sign a 20-year lease, and then once they get signed, we have no recourse.
So,
It is what it is.
so I'm going to address that real quick, and then we're going to move on. Okay, hold on, folks, please, sir, ma'am, and okay, yes, and we will absolutely get to you, just like I've gotten to other people. Okay, so the lease portion, if and when we get to that portion, okay, any lease has to go through our legal counsel, okay, and they have to go through the governing board. All right, and there are things that, like, sir, you talked about covenants of use, correct? Okay, so there are things that we can put into the lease, and this is part of that soliciting feedback of, hey, Phoenix Rising, if we do this and we move forward, you cannot have any pro players practicing on this field outside of a bring your kid day. So where kids get to come kick a ball with a pro. Okay, those are the kind of things that we can write into those leases. And we'll get to that point if and when the governing board says, hey, let's continue down the path. Okay? So I'm going to kick that question to Dr. Menzel. I'm assuming it's public record. Yep.
Yes, you won't see it when it's being drafted, but when it's presented to the governing board for approval, the public would be able to see that. It's part of the materials that are submitted before the board approves it.
Okay. So the two questions, okay, so we're going to get to your question, ma'am, and then you have been very patient holding your hand, and then you, sir, I've seen you, okay? So go ahead and ask your question.
So the first thing that came up, and this is not the major thing as time keeps going on, but mention was made that most families carpool. Well, I've been in the neighborhood. I'm in my mid-60s. I lived in that neighborhood since I was 9 years old.
Okay.
I've gone to baseball games. I've gone to all the different games. People do not carpool. Grandma and grandpa come in their own car. Mom and dad are divorced. Dad comes and brings his family in this car. Mom comes and brings the kids in this car. It is, the carpooling thing is bogus. Number two.
Well, hold on. So I want to make sure that we get the question. So your concern. Okay, so I hear your concern is, I want to make sure that I understand it, is that the
statement is that carpooling is bogus.
So that
what you mentioned, there will not be, the majority of them will not be carpooling. There will be multiple cars per kid that will be coming to those games.
So you're saying the 80 car number is not an accurate number, is that correct?
Right.
Correct. Okay, there we go.
Okay.
And then that's what I'm trying to get to. Okay.
The next one that I have is we're talking about as the picture develops now, we've got locker rooms that in them have ability to play videos and stuff like this for their teams and all this, but yet the kids are just coming to play the game and leave. No, if they're going to be spending time in this nice locker room that's been provided for the teams to be able to hang out in and share and do their training and whatever, that doesn't sound like they're coming there just to play soccer and leave and go home. So they're going to be staying in our neighborhood, multiplying more cars, multiplying more people, multiplying more traffic, upsetting our neighborhood more than is being looked at, more than is being admitted.
So, okay, so but before you move on, I want to make sure that, yes, sir, we'll get to you. I promise. Okay, we will get to you. I see your hand. Okay, so what I'm hearing is that this is not just you're going to come, practice, and leave. And now that might be a question that, Tim, you could have Chris answer for the older kids for how these competitive youth football clubs actually run.
He
Yeah.
just said the locker rooms were gonna have space in them for them to show, I don't even need, I don't trust government, I don't trust him, and I don't trust, I don't care what someone says, I put facts together.
Yes.
And if our country would have done that all along, we might not be in the situation we're in right now.
So hold on. Okay, hold on.
I will make my own
Yeah.
extractions out
Good.
of that.
So I want to, so just a really quick explanation, and Chris, you can correct me if I'm wrong. The higher you get in competitive youth sports, the more like a semi-pro collegiate program it gets. Okay, is that a fair and accurate statement? That they spend time studying film, that they spend time doing more than just practicing on the field. So your concern is that we're going to have more cars because these higher level clubs are going to be spending longer times at the field. Is that correct? Okay. Yes, absolutely, Tim.
So the reason that isn't the case is because we make a commitment to the family as how long the practices are. And when our coach chooses that this night we're going to look at film for half the practice and the other half of the time we're going to be on the field, the reason this is absolutely vital is because if the kids don't have the time to do homework, they won't perform in school and they won't be able to come back to soccer practice. So we balance the soccer practice to a specific amount of time. It's always the same amount of time, and the kids don't hang around and linger around afterward. So I appreciate the hypothesis. It's just not the way we operate.
Okay, and then you had one more question, then we're going to move on, okay?
My other thought is
Yes, ma'am.
that, apartment building condos that with them, obviously. Where are these children going to go to school down?
So for everybody that, thank you for your question. So for everybody that couldn't hear, for everybody online, the question is, so with the influx of condominiums being built and the influx of people coming in, where are those kids, if they move to the neighborhood, where are they going to go to school? Okay, so that is a much bigger conversation and definitely not a conversation that we're going to solve tonight or really spend a lot of time on. Now, what I will say is that we have Tonalea, hold on, sir. Let me answer the question. So we have Tonalea K8 just down the road off of Continental and 68th. We're getting done building. That's one of my projects. Hohokam Elementary, brand new school. Okay, that's opening up, so it'll be ready for August of 2020. It's 2021. Yes, August 2021. Okay, and then we have Yavapai Elementary there, and we have space for now. But that conversation and that question is a much bigger question and a valid question, and one that will ultimately be decided by 3 of these individuals that are over here on our governing board and more community members. Does that? Sir, please.
Has been there forever.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yep.
And Toronto, which is now called whatever it is, across the street from Toronto.
Yes, ma'am.
It's been there forever.
Correct.
So those aren't additional seats for the bus right now. But with all these apartments and condos going in, and you don't want kids to go 12 miles to go to school, where are the kids gonna go to school?
So,
Because Monalea was in the middle of a big area and it was full of kids when I was there.
and so
And it
again,
will be again with
yep.
all the kids that are coming into the neighborhood.
So again, that this is not I understand your question, okay, and this is not something that we can solve tonight because Tonalea, yes, it does.
Of that property
Absolutely.
for 20 years.
So,
when it could be used for a
yes,
school
ma'am.
for kids.
So what I'm gonna tell you is that right now we have space, we have kids coming to the schools, and that's not a problem. Now, again, if and when we get there, that's a governing board question. I highly encourage you, if you have opinions about this, go to our governing board meetings. They're the second and fourth? The second and fourth Tuesday every single month, okay? Because I know talking about the size of schools is a completely different conversation, and that's a conversation really for that. So we hear the feedback, we hear that for this campus, okay? Now we're gonna move on to the next question. Is that okay?
So you know it ties in.
Yes, ma'am, it does.
Tying this property up to 28.
Yes, ma'am, it does. Well, okay. So as of right now, thank you. As of right now, we are negotiating in good faith. I think is that the correct terminology? So since we've been, Dr. Menzel, can you take this one? I think you know
Yes,
better than I do.
The governing board directed the district to work with legal counsel to negotiate in good faith with Phoenix Rising on a plan for the property. So that's step that we're in at the present moment. We don't have a contract to consider for approval. We're gathering input. We're identifying what the terms and conditions might be that could be acceptable to the community and the neighborhood. The governing board is very interested in the feedback that we're getting, but we have to look at those conversations first. So this is a sequential process, not one that we've thrown out. So there have been other people who have suggested we should just put this out for bid and then see what we can get. That's not the approach that we've taken. We were approached after the property had sat unused for a period of time by Phoenix Rising with a proposal to be able to put it to use that would benefit the community. That's the goal of the conversation.
Hold on, folks, hold on.
That's the goal of the conversation. And so that's why we're here this evening, to gather the input that will help inform the next step in the conversation.
And then, hold on, folks, hold on. So, Dr. Menzel, if it's a no, what would the next step be?
So if the community sentiment is not to move forward here, then we have to go back to the governing board in terms of next step, whether we cancel this project, decide to do something different with the property. If the governing board, for example, were to sell the property, they would have to go to the voters of the school district to approve that. There are many different options that are available for consideration. We don't believe that it's in the best interest of the school district or the neighborhood to leave the property unattended. We've heard enough concerns about the property in its current condition that something needs to be done. So we're exploring constructive opportunities. We believe this is a viable opportunity to consider, but that's why we're gathering the information. And I appreciate the fact that people feel passionately about the conversation, but that doesn't mean that we won't be civil or respectful in the conversation. That's what we're asking for. We have people who have opinions on both sides of this discussion, and we're going to respectfully ask that people share your opinions, and then we'll take that under consideration as we consider next steps.
So to make sure that everybody, yes, and absolutely, ma'am, I'm very sorry. If the overwhelming sentiment is yes or no, then we go to the next step. So if the overwhelming sentiment to our governing board is no, and they decide no, then it would be open for other people to give us a proposition or basically a proposal of what they would like to do with the property. And then it would be at the guidance of the governing board of what we would do. Does that? Correct, and that's what we would be. Well, that's how those proposals would come in, and that's how we would vet those. Does that make sense? Okay. Yes, ma'am. Go right ahead. So to recapture her question, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, is in the traffic study that was done that says there wouldn't be really any more traffic than was happening when Tonalea was an active campus. Have we taken into consideration that this will be operating not during normal school hours? Tonalea operated from 7:45 to 2:15. This will operate at a much different time period. Does that sound about right? Okay. So the afternoon, so basically the time from 3 to 9. Is that correct? Okay.
Thank you, Dan. Thanks for your question. When we prepare a comprehensive traffic study, yes, we absolutely will consider the time of day and the amount of traffic generated by the youth complex here. And we will have to analyze per City of Scottsdale requirements how everything is operating with the existing traffic and with the new traffic. There have been some preliminary calculations, and that may be what you're referring to, but we have not even begun a comprehensive traffic study yet. The statement was true as far as it went. The two soccer fields will generate much less traffic than Tonalea School did, peak hours and day.
So hold on, folks. Let's not get derailed. So hold on, sir. All right. So what I'm asking is that we still be respectful and we have a respectful dialogue, please, folks. Yes, absolutely. And I have been that way. I think you could say that. So why? So I'm assuming that Phoenix Rising has contracted with Mr. Basha for this. Okay. So what I'm hearing from Mr. Basha, and hold on, folks, I've got this gentleman over here next, and I've got this gentleman over here next. So I see your hands, I promise. Okay. What I'm hearing from Mr. Basha is maybe the total volume of cars won't be different, but it'll be a very much different time period. So the data that he collected, there wouldn't be any different amount of cars. But we all know if you go on the 202 from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m., it's a lot different than going from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Okay, so the study will have to be more comprehensive if and when we go through that process with the city of Scottsdale. Okay? Correct. Yes, sir, go ahead. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. Okay.
Right now, maybe you're right, maybe those people don't carpool anymore, but right now people are using Uber and Lyft. Scottsdale probably goes right through there. That's probably being used, I think. My question is, would you promote the lane widening of 68th Street? Because those condominiums, like, if we say yes, would you help us lane widen that 68th Street? It is being traffic,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not because of you, it's because all the condominiums are building. And help us promote the trolley use, maybe build pallet parking in other locations. If it gets bad, so then trolleys can be used so that one can track us as much.
Okay, so I want to make sure I synopsize those two before we go any further, okay? Because I'll forget. I've hit my head a lot, all right? So first question was, would we advocate for a widening of 68th Street? Now, that's something that we can ask the city of Scottsdale, but that is something that is outside of the purview of us as a school district. So we can say, hey, city of Scottsdale, we think this is a good idea, and they can turn around and say, hey, Dan, you can go somewhere else. Like, we're not going to do that. We're not going to spend that money. So it's a municipality, so we can always ask them, and we have a very good relationship with the city of Scottsdale, but we can always ask. And then the second part of that question was advocating the use of the trolley and satellite parking. Is that correct? So again, that would be more of a Phoenix Rising question if they would have offsite parking. Now, from what I understand from the presentation, maybe it would be, maybe it wouldn't be, but that would absolutely be a discussion point for us to have with them. Okay. Hold on. Hold on, sir. Okay, so hold on, folks. Folks, hold on. Hold on. Okay. So the concern was that if it were to go for sale, that a multi-use developer would buy it. Now again, just to reiterate the process, we have to go through a very open process for all of that, right? Just like we're doing now, this is very open. If we were going to sell it, I think the last property we sold was off of Indianola. Is that correct? Next to Arcadia High School, which went to Hospice of the Valley. It would be a very open process. Okay, so I understand the concern. I hear the concern, but let's not put the buggy before the horse. Okay, we're not there. So totally valid. All right, sir, go ahead. Hold on, folks. It's hard to hear. Go ahead, sir. So right now, the longest lease the school district can enter is 20 years. Now, any terms that are beyond that would be negotiated between legal counsel and so our legal counsel and the legal counsel with Phoenix Rising. So the question is, what are their provisions? Can you clarify that a little bit? What do you mean by provisions? So that would be a term of the lease that would be negotiated with council that says, hey, these are the terms of use, and us as the landlord would be able to have those terms. And if I'm speaking out of turn, Dr. Menzel, let me know. That we would be able to have those terms, but we're not. No, so we're not there yet. So we're not there at the terms part. Yeah. Well, so all of those, yeah. Yeah. Yes. So just to synopsize your question was what would the terms be for us to say, hey, Phoenix Rising, you're not following what we've agreed upon. Either come into line or get off the property. Is that a correct? Is that a fair synopsis? Okay. Correct. Okay, so I understand what you're. Well, okay. So. So thank you for your question. I would like to say my feelings aren't hurt, but you know, that's life. You get over it. So hold on, folks, please. Yes, I'm trying to answer his question, sir. Can you please wait? Thank you. So any provisions, any legal counsel or any legal agreement that we're going to enter into is not going to be done just by the seat of our pants. It'll be done with legal counsel, with provisions. Now, Phoenix Rising will be dumping how many millions of dollars into it? $2.5 million. So they don't want to lose out on their investment, okay? But there will be provisions that protect the school district because that's Dr. Menzel's charge and that's the governing board's charge, okay? And what I would advocate for you guys to do is make sure you get to governing board meetings. I can't tell you how many I've been to where there's not very much public participation, okay? That's what these fine people over here ran for. That's what they're paid for. They get to hear all that stuff.
Dan, I would like to add. Dan,
Yes.
I would just like to add that as part of this conversation, and again, we appreciate the feedback, but the governing board was elected to ensure that as stewards of taxpayer resources, we're providing educational opportunities for the students in Scottsdale Unified School District. The decision that was made in 2014 to tear down the building was a decision that was made by a different administration and a different governing board. We're now at a point in time where we have a parcel of land that we have to make a decision about. And the one thing I haven't heard in our conversations tonight is a conversation about what's in the best interest of the young people that live in the neighborhood. And that's part of the conversation that was included in the proposal from Phoenix Rising that made us interested in that conversation. It's perfectly relevant to raise the concerns about traffic, about parking, about the implications of the conversation. But the genesis behind this was, how do we create opportunities for young people in the community? When you look at the demographic studies for the community and you look at the capacity of Hohokam, the capacity of Yavapai, and the capacity of Tonalea K8, there's not the demand. And even the condos, they don't have enough kids to fill another elementary school. So while I understand that sentiment, the data doesn't support that. And so having a thoughtful conversation about the best use for that property is what we're trying to accomplish.
Okay, so I'm going to take one more question. Hold on. We have another question and answer period, but there's a whole other portion of this presentation that I know. I'm really trying to get through all of the questions. I know. Okay, so I'm going to take one more question. You've been very patient. Yes, ma'am. So the statement is, oh, okay, good. So so the statement and then the questions, just so everybody online can hear and everybody else can hear. The statement is, was this 6 years ago or how long ago? 2014. So in 2014, the statement is that the proposition or the proposal was that we would build basically a multi-use kind of stadium facility for student athletics. Okay. So now to answer your question, I've only been here for the last 2 years, so I have no idea. I'm hoping either governing board members or Nancy Cantor, do you know? Yeah, go ahead.
I'm one of the culprits who brought this thing in 7.5 years ago when they decided to play games with Tonalea. All of those plans rested on what would happen with the bond. And that's why the funding isn't there. That's that as far as that part of it goes. Now, when the district entertained the idea of creating the resource center, that wasn't something that the board was privy to. The superintendent, one member of the board, were cooking up the deal with some people who were sitting on our Scottsdale City Council. And because of what they were doing and because Mr. Heather found out about it, it stopped. There were a lot of illegal things that were going on pertaining to funding, pertaining to who was going to be able to rent it, what it was going to be used for. So that stopped. Oh, yes, because we fought that one. We fought that one tooth and nail. When they started doing the redevelopment to Kiva, was it Kiva? Or Hopi? No, Kiva. The first one, I get mixed up, but the first one they did, there was a lot of discussion around why that was being done and why was Tonalea, which was supposed to be the first one, was pushed to the back. And we fought tooth and nail to get that accomplished. Then it all fell through. At this juncture, no. And one more thing. You're all talking about traffic, and you're all talking about the new developments. The new developments that are in here on McDowell Road were supposed to have been reviewed by Superintendent Peterson and the information shared with the city. They were never done. He never looked at them. So you have condominiums and apartments that have gone in that do not really accommodate families, and young families can't afford them. And we fought on that, and city council needs to hear from the people. I'd be more than happy to lead the charge, but it needs to hear from the people. Secondly, I'm impatient. I've lived here for 60 years. That's right. Now, one other thing is, there are over 6,000 multifamily housing units in the pipeline. Now, I said units, not individual projects, but units in the pipeline. And none of them are addressing families. So the prospect of having families back here soon isn't a good one. And the city needs to hear about that too. Streets. When we're putting in all the condominiums and all these projects that have been approved, they haven't added one street. No, I understand. But don't blame everything on them, and don't blame everything on Phoenix Rising.
Okay, so I've had this gentleman over here that I had no idea had his hand up. So, oh, there's a second question? Okay, sorry. So the concern is if we were to put an island in the middle of the roads, correct? How would it benefit, or how would this project benefit the neighborhood? Okay, so this is something in the second half. So how it's going to benefit the neighborhood, that part's going to be answered in the second part of the presentation. Okay, and I want to be respectful of everybody's time because we've already gone over time. But for Mr. Basha, go ahead and you can answer the island question real quick, please.
Thank you, Dan. The city of Scottsdale suggested that there be an island between the northbound 68th Street lane and the existing right turn lane for 68th Street. The island would separate 68th Street from the proposed angle parking. The island would not be in the middle of the road between the northbound and southbound traffic. That was not the suggestion. It'd be on the east side of the street. Correct. Thank you for the opportunity to correct that.
And then very last one, and then we're moving on, folks, okay? Yes, sir, go ahead. Hold on, folks, please be quiet. I'll reiterate the question.
The reason I came here tonight is the gentleman behind the desk posed a question about the youth and this youth. And I felt sorry for them for a number of years. I've watched them grow up. They have no park. There's a little postage stamp park 2 blocks away. That's it. And I always thought whenever the school was destroyed, that's what they would do. They would build a nice park for the kids. They could do multiple sports and so on and so forth. Now, most questions in our life can be really answered if you follow the money. And we got a professional soccer team Verizon, and they came forward and want to introduce to a 20-year contract with you. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes, sir.
Are they going to build a stadium, or are you going to build it?
So let me make sure I reiterate the concern and then the question. So what I'm hearing is what the concern is. Well, that's so everybody else can hear. I know. Hold on. I promise we'll get there. Okay. The concern is who's going to build it and who's going to pay for it. Is that correct?
But you've got a professional, supposedly soccer team, they've got a stadium over here. There's fewer seats than that than most high schools have. Where are they getting their money?
Okay. So that part of the first part of the question is where does Phoenix Rising get their money? They're a completely private organization, and Tim, you can tell me I'm wrong, but they don't have to. I'm sure there's something where they do their financial statements. That's not something.
We just completed building a brand new stadium at Wild Horse Pass. Sir, it's already finished. We're not going to build a stadium on this site. It's too small, and obviously the traffic, as you've talked so much, we could never do a stadium there. So what we're talking about is the nonprofit organization that Chris Brown's he's about to share with you. None of us, I'm not paid for this. I'm totally volunteering my time. I'm actually a financial contributor, so the kids have an opportunity to play. If you invite us and we're allowed to do this, I'll be personally writing checks so the kids have a place to play. I don't make any money on it. If later in their lives they become fans of soccer and they want to bring their kids and grandkids to see Phoenix Rising, then maybe the team will benefit later. Yeah. No, so recreational soccer, we charge $95 a season, $75 for recreation. And then if they make it to the club level, what's the training fee for club level? $130 a month. Times 12. Or times 10, probably. So the parents pay for the travel. Yeah. They don't pay the nonprofit for that. They do that on their own.
I'll just end my thought. I was involved in semi-pro football. We practiced in a park. And I watched Pop Warner football in California. We had teams all over the area. We all practiced in the park. We didn't practice on the field. We played on field. The parks were already there. So for them to have a facility like this.
So just so that way everybody online can hear and everybody here can hear, the concern in the statement is it doesn't make sense to have this because individuals have fields to practice on or parks to practice on and then play on the fields. So that was the concern. Okay, and then just to answer the question on who would pay for it, and this goes back to questions that we've had before, if and when the school district would go into this agreement, and again, if and when, two very big words, we would not have the financial, we would not be paying for it, nor would we be maintaining it. That would be all a part of the legal documents where Phoenix Rising would fund the construction, fund the permitting, fund everything that goes along with it would be on the Youth Football Club of Phoenix Rising. And so now with that, I'm gonna turn this over to Chris, and we're gonna go through. No, ma'am, we're gonna go through this, and then we have another spot for questions. Okay, we have another one. Yes, Jen. This one. So at the very top, you see it right here.
1643582.
All right. So I'm going to go back now. I'm going to give this over to Chris, and we have another spot for questions. Yeah. Okay.
Hi, guys. I promise to be efficient with your time. On behalf of me and Tim, we really appreciate your questions and your concerns. I've invested my life in teaching children, and I think if there's some common ground we can establish here, we have some connection with children in some aspect, whether it's kids or grandkids or friends, kids, and they're very valuable. And in particular, this last year, they've had a horrendous time. So what I try and specialize in is providing programs and services for those children. And we're really good at doing that. We're really good at doing that. So I'm not here to position whether you prefer lacrosse or swimming, or whether they should be in athletics or whatever it is, the cost of programs. What we try and do is become inclusive, and we try and become as diverse as possible when we offer our programs and services. So my pain point when I run our organization is the 3 F's: foundation, facilities, and fields. The foundation one, we worked so hard. We've raised $1.2 million in the last 8 years to provide benefits for children, to provide opportunities for kids who have got financial barriers to their participation. We raise that money. We don't charge training fees for doing that. We go and raise money. We go to businesses. We go to organizations. We host events that empower kids, that showcases the goods of kids, the ideals of kids being outdoors and participating in sports, and all those benefits that are associated with that. My 2 other pain points are facilities and fields. So regardless of how we pitch this, what one of my goals is to provide a playing surface that isn't dust ridden, so that when kids are walking on it, it's inducing asthma and some of those other impacts of that. Right, we want to put grass down. We want to put good grass down. Like when you hear some concerns about the numbers of kids that you feel that we're proposing to put through the facility, it's not in our interest to put hundreds and hundreds of kids through the facility, because the grass impact diminishes as soon as we do that. It's not in our benefit. So as I stand before you today, my interest is in children. It's how I can provide programs and services, how we can include them, how can we have all those traits and good benefits of participating in athletics. I sympathize with the school district. I used to be don't boo me here, I used to be a teacher in math and phys ed. And again, those teachers have had such a tough year. And I'm very thankful for all of their efforts in keeping our kids educated. So thank you for listening. I do want to finish with this. Respectfully to Tim Reister, he's not in real estate and he's a volunteer. So I appreciate Tim standing up here and fielding your questions and fielding your concerns. Yes, sir. Sure. Sure. So, sure, that's a great.
We have hundreds of kids running across 68th Street, Hope Street, every single day when this park's gonna open up. What are you gonna do about that? These kids are from this traffic store flying down 68th Street.
So something my father taught me from an early age is, if you're not a specialist in something, ask somebody that is a specialist in something. So respectfully to Mr. Basher, I understand I don't know Mr. Basher well, but I've got to know him over a series of meetings. If we're not a specialist in traffic control, we go to someone that has. So again, people have got some opinions about some of the feedback that Mr. Basher's given tonight, and you're open to that opinion. But I think that's very commendable to, if we're not specialists in something, go to people who are specialists in something and seek their advice.
We all love soccer. My grandkids play soccer, still play soccer. I go to these parks all over the valley.
Sure.
And there's kids running all over the place.
Sure.
Nobody's talking about safety with these kids. Where are these kids? They're going to be parking down these side streets. Cars are going 50, 60, 70 miles an hour down 68th Street. Now, not all the time.
Sure.
But they do.
Sure.
These kids are going to be running across the street.
So
Safety should be their number one concern.
it is. So I thought your question about safety was going to go in a different direction. So I apologize, because we actually associate a member with Arizona Soccer Association, and we actually, every single member of our organization, whether they're a volunteer or a coach, have to go through stringent background checks and something called safe sport checks, which just looks out for our oversight of kids. With regards to kids running across a road, I would just encourage people, something that we do a lot in our organization is parent education. Is parent education. So I would ask parents to watch their kids closer. But
Okay. So thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
We're gonna move through this, and I see your hands. We're gonna get to them, I promise. Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, ma'am, please. Okay. So as we see this, we've seen comments in here, things that people want. We have more of an open park concept. We have a coffee shop and a bookstore. public use space, meet and greet with our high school players and the pros. So this is all good feedback and stuff that we will make sure we have. Okay, so for this one, what services and features would be most beneficial to the community? And again, this is for the stuff that Chris just talked about the kids. So if we see, we'll see if anything populates.
I can almost guarantee you, most of the kids coming into this field are not our community kids. I can almost guarantee you, a very small amount will be from our local community.
So the question, hold on guys. So the question, and if I'm gonna summarize, the question is how many Scottsdale kids are gonna be utilizing it? Okay, so thank you. Okay, that's why, and again, hold on everybody. Folks, please slow down. That's why I'm making a synopsis of her statement so she can correct me, okay? So the question is how many South Scottsdale kids will be participating in this? Is that correct? Okay. Go ahead,
So
Chris.
this is actually my 4th meeting that I've participated with the community. And I think it was in our 2nd or 3rd meeting, we talked about what was very important to Phoenix Rising, what was very important to the neighborhood. And one expression from the neighborhood representation at that point was the importance of community programming for the kids in the community. So high. In response to your question, the number of kids from this neighborhood that would be included would be high. So one of the things that we have that we find very, very important to us is our entry level point for a 10-week soccer program in our rec program is $75. So the thing I like about that is that would be 1 to 2 practices a week and an experience on the weekend. So if you do the math on that, kids are getting a soccer experience and a free uniform for a couple of bucks every single time they go out. So I would imagine that the interest in programming like that would be huge. I don't want to speak on behalf of other organizations because I'm very proud about our organization. I've been fortunate enough to be in the soccer area here for 22 years. So I know most of the groups and know most of the organizations. I'm very respectful of them. I don't know enough about Scottsdale Premier and what they stand for.
So the question, and again, I'm going to synopsize. The question is the Phoenix Rising Youth Football Club going to assimilate those other programs into them?
So sure.
So the question then is, are they assimilating the Scottsdale Blackhawks, which are not?
Sure. Sure.
Okay, so let me synopsize real quick. Yep, let me synopsize real quick so everybody can hear. Okay, so the concern again is that the kids that will be utilizing these fields are not South Scottsdale kids, and they belong to other programs that do not operate in South Scottsdale. Is that correct? Okay. Okay, so Chris, go ahead.
So again, for full transparency, I've been with Scottsdale Soccer Blackhawks for 19 years, and the same nonprofit and the same board of directors and the same leadership and the same management. When we did a relationship with Tim's group, all we did was change our name. So the ideals and the philosophies and so I think the question I can't answer is why have more kids from this Tonalea area not participated more in our programs up until this point of time? I don't know, but I do know what we'd like to do for the future, because I feel we're really good at what we do. I don't think that satisfies you, because you're saying all the kids are going to come from the north and they're going to come from the west, and I don't really know what that means, but sure. 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 I think your first concern, though, was there won't
Hold
be
on,
any
folks, if we can
programming
just keep it down,
for
please.
kids in the neighborhood, and I can assure you there will be. I think that was your first question. Sure. 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 So I don't want to offend the traditionalists here, because the traditionalists are people that have always rooted for football and hockey and for basketball and for baseball, but soccer is a growing and evolving sport. Sure. So, but what I wanted to share with you is we have such a demand for children who want to play for our organization, which is such a thankful thing for us. So we have other sites in Scottsdale, and we're not relinquishing those sites. So do you remember I shared my pain points? Foundation, facility, and fields. I think we could assume another 5 fields, and it probably wouldn't satisfy the demand of kids that like to play, which is such a great, glowing endorsement in terms of what we do. I'm a youth soccer coach.
So I'm going to synopsize because we need to move on. The concern is that it's not going to be South Scottsdale kids participating. Okay. So hold on. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna point out some people. I know I've seen hands up, and we want to respect our time. So sir, your hand's been up. So it'll be you, and then you, ma'am, right there, and then hold on, please, ma'am. Okay. So are you okay yielding, ma'am? Are you okay yielding? Okay, ma'am, go ahead.
And they've been shifted around to 4 or 5 different locations. And now I've heard that the Coronado High School level on Charlie Block. So the same stuff here. That were kicked out of Columbia. They're talking about kicking out of students here. They deserve to have this. And what it is not all just about the suffer. There's other plans for the community, for a walking place, a cover, so they don't have to keep staring at that playground that they cannot touch. That is for blankets that they left it up and showed it to every freaking single day, blocked off until they were not worth being able to play on it. That was just a slap in your face every single day for what, past 9 years at least? It's horrendous. And it's about the same time they stepped up and did it for them, because they deserve it.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. And then, so are you guys okay yielding to the other one with the kid, so they can get home? Is that okay? Okay. Go ahead, ma'am. All right, thank you. All right, so, sir, and then ma'am. Go ahead, sir. Okay. Okay, so the very first question is, what's the time frame? Is there a season? Is it year round?
It's hot in the summer. So we would normally start, even though it's hot, we would normally start our programming around August, and we run then consecutively through till the following, around May. 10 months. 10 months.
Okay, so 10 months, yep.
Sure.
So the question is, what's the age demographic of the kids that'll be participating?
Do you know, for us to be inclusive, I think it would be all ages.
Can you qualify that? What do you mean by like so
as young as 4 and 5, and as older as 18. So if you were to go to our other sites, it's very diverse. It's very inclusive of all ages.
And my third question is, does we feel the standard size, right? The gentleman said that the smaller, the younger they are, the smaller the field. Planning on dividing these 2 fields up into 4 fields if there's young kids that are playing?
So one of the nuances of soccer is there's a minimum and a width and length for full-sided fields. So you can actually have kind of different shaped fields, which is unusual. But earlier the presentation talked about if the kids are younger, the fields are just reconfigured, and we would put fields on a full-sided field in a different configuration. If you remember my point about the quality of grass, it's not in our interest to put hundreds of kids through it.
Okay, so basically what you're saying is you're not going to divide the fields into 4. What you're going to do
We would at certain moments of the year, but whether we would have games on all of them I think would be unusual.
So if I may just kind of synopsize, so if they're young kids, so I pulled this back up on the screen so we can see if they're say 7-year-olds.
Yes.
How are they going to play? Are they going to play the full pitch, or are they going to play in this half of the field?
So when I first came to America 30 years ago, they played the full pitch, but they would play across a half from touchline to touchline.
So they would play on this square. Is
Sure.
that correct?
Yes.
And so then we could have 1, 2, 3, and 4. But again, those are the small kids, and they have
Sure.
smaller roster sizes.
Sure.
Correct?
And
okay.
and
Does that
you know,
answer your
listening.
question, sir? Okay. Yep. Absolutely. Thank you, ma'am.
Make sure that the youth, the Phoenix Rising youth branch, whatever, that they know, we want you here. There are young families here. We want you here for our kids.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Now, sir, you've had your hand for quite a long time up, so it'll be you, and then I think you. Ooh, I'm gonna need help on this. I don't know who's had their hand up for a long time, so we'll start with you, and then we'll figure the rest out.
What's different is going to be if I take it to MP or Mesa, older team or more experienced team, if they are, on how it here. If I take it to extra curriculum classes in touring school, it doesn't cost me anything. Why should I pay? And this property is part of the Scottsdale district for something you can probably get free and under our park. They get together and they play soccer as well.
Okay, so the question is, if we turn this into a soccer field, you said football, so I want to make sure that I'm understanding correctly. Soccer, correct? What's the benefit for his kid when he can go to other places and play for free? Is that a correct synopsis? Yeah. Yep. So okay, so the question is, when you can play for the Scottsdale School District and it's free, why would you play for this and what's the benefit? So so Mr. Velarde is the coach of the Coronado High School team, correct? So, well, hold on, because first there's an assumption that we need to clarify and make sure we understand if it's actually free for the kids that play in the district, if it's free. So is it free or is there costs associated?
There's a cost associated, especially for, if we're gonna travel, because we go, we have to pay, the kids have to pay the fee before we take care of the bus.
Can't hear you.
The kids have to pay a fee to play in sports because we have costs. We have to pay for the refs, we have to pay for the buses, we have to, pay a bunch of things. Okay, and the difference between playing for me and playing for club is that they go 10 months out of the year. I get them for 2.5 months with a break in between. So if your kid really wants to play, wants to develop, club is the only way. And you're right, I feel you about the cost thing, but the sad part is that's just the way club is anymore. Soccer, no matter who you play for, you're going to pay to play, you're going to pay for the trainers. That's just the reality. And actually, that's very affordable what they're talking about. I know lots of clubs that charge, a couple of $1,000s up front, and they travel. When I was coaching for the Tempe Soccer Club, the coach that had the same age group as mine, I had U14 girls, they were traveling 2 to 3 times a month. And that was just crazy. I couldn't believe how much they were spending. And that's the thing is that's soccer for you. That's just the way it is. But the reality is that's all sports. Mm-hmm. If you play basketball, you got to pay court fees. If you play volleyball, you got to pay court fees. If you get play football, you got to pay for the equipment. It all costs money, guys.
Yep. Thank you, sir.
I'm glad you asked that because you brought it up earlier. My best player who won Player of the Year in my region and Defensive Player of the Year in my region, this morning told me he wants to try out for them. Okay? No. I have a couple of my JV and.
Hold on, sir.
No. The answer right now is I have several. The answer right now. No. You let me speak. You asked me a question. I didn't have anybody then. Okay. First of all, that's not what I said. No, that's not what I said. At the time, there were no players from the Phoenix Rising in my program. Okay, that was the beginning of the season.
I'm trying to get there, I promise.
I have more players now. Okay.
Okay. So it is, sir, raising your voice and being disrespectful is, I know, but you're raising your voice. You're coming off very angry. Okay. So I want to be respectful of everybody's time because we could probably go on like this for another 3 hours and not come to a real good consensus. Okay. So I'm going to do 1 and 2 more questions. Okay. So 1 and 2 more, and then we're going to go and put it up to where we get the feedback from you guys on whether you feel we should move forward or you feel we should not move forward. Okay. So go ahead, sir. Okay. So the question is, so everybody can hear, what's the threshold for a child to qualify to have that cost subsidized?
So something I'm really proud of, I can't remember a family that we've ever turned down.
And next question. Okay. So before we jump off of that, so the list of questions, just so everybody's clear, we are going to do our absolute best to go through that list. My assistant Gatlin, what this does is this kicks it out in an Excel format, and we get all the questions. And on the very first community meeting, myself, my director Dennis Railer, and Jen and the Phoenix Rising group, Jen from Rose Law, we answered the questions. There were a ton, so it's not super fast, and we got them kicked out to the community. So we will get the questions answered. So just know that. So go ahead. Okay. So the question is, if the community says, hey, we want to take the next step in this process, because that's all that this quote unquote vote is to tell the governing board, hey, governing board, we think you should take the next step. This is what we want. The next steps in the process, and again, Dr. Menzel, correct me if I'm wrong, there's a whole lot of lawyers involved for legal terms, and then all of that stuff is going to have to be in an open meeting where we have to have the agenda published, where we have to make those documents available for people to look at and to read and have public comment. So this would not be at all the last public event for this proposal if it were to move forward.
And I would just add that part of the ask, should we proceed, is to identify what are the value added things for our kids in the community that would be important to include in the agreement with Phoenix Rising. So we're talking about the base aspect of the proposal. One of the things that we haven't talked about this evening is that the district has an obligation to charge fair market rate for the rental of the property. And that will be a combination of the investment that, in this case, that the investment that Phoenix Rising is making in the property and whatever other conditions that are included in the agreement. So the things that we're talking about in terms of how do you ensure that kids have access, what are the hours of operation, all of the other things that are important to the community, those all need to be built into the agreement. And we've invited people, we'll continue to invite people to share what those priorities are so that we can be sure that a final agreement reflects a value proposition that's meaningful to the community, meaningful to our students, and obviously Phoenix Rising needs to have a value proposition that's meaningful to them. And if we can reach agreement with all those parties, then we can move forward. If not, then we have to move in a different direction, but that's the goal. And so you could say yes, and then list some of the things that you think are really important to have in that agreement. That's what we're looking for.
So just a synopsis, and again, one more question, we're going to get to it, everybody. I know we can keep going on, I know. Is that you would want more input into the design, and that's something that Tim and his team have continually I want to say harp, but that's kind of negative connotation. Whatever the positive connotation of that is, right? They've continually brought it up and said, hey, we want your feedback. We want your advice. We want what you want for this if we move forward. So contiguous green space. I don't think that's been something that's brought up yet. So if we were to do it, right, and if we were to get to that part, I'm assuming that Tim would have a visioning process with his architects, because that's what we do for all of our school rebuilds, and we take all of these into account. Does that make sense? Okay. Sir, go ahead. Oh, 2. Come on. Okay. Okay. So the first question is, do any kids, or are there going to be any kids that do not have to pay at all to use it? Okay, so that first question is, are there going to be kids that are basically subsidized completely so they can play soccer there? Is that a fair synopsis? Okay.
So we've learned this the hard way. We had a program probably 4 years ago that we made it completely free for kids, and we felt that when you offer scholarships to kids, we feel that it's a relationship, and we felt that both sides of the relationship wasn't always honored when it was completely free. So we're at the point now where kids of low income families, we try and get it to as pretty close to 90 to 95%. So a small amount. Really?
So I think, yeah, so I think just to do a quick synopsis of that is, when we don't have some financial cost in it from both parties, that you don't have the buy-in from both parties. And that if it's completely free, that Chris and his team has seen is that it's not.
I'm just trying to answer your question as accurately as possible.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Gotcha. Okay. And then question number 2. So the question, just so the question that the gentleman asked was, A, what kind of money would we get, and B, how would that money be utilized? Would it go into South Scottsdale? So first, the kind of money that we would get, we would have to have a realtor establish fair market value, right? Then they would have to take into account the Phoenix Rising capital investment for the buildings, and then amortize that over the length of the lease. So if that's over 20 years, then that's the number. Now how? No, that's how it works with the real estate broker. So it's the capital investment, because we keep the capital investment at the end. They can't. They're not going to take the building out of the ground and the soccer fields with them when they go. We get it. Correct, they do. So we don't pay any money to maintain or build it, and the district will receive money. Now that money that we get goes into a rental fund, and again, somebody here that deals with this more than I do, please, if I'm speaking incorrectly, tell me. And we can use that for other things. Now, there are lots of rules for how we can use school money, lots of red tape. That is not something I do. I build buildings and I build stuff. So
Right. And that's part of the parameters that can be set by the district before we finalize the agreement, to ensure that surplus revenue, should that be the case, that money's coming in, that we can use it to support activities in the community that support our kids. We have to use the resources to support our students. And so in South Scottsdale, that would make a lot of sense. And it could be used to help offset some of the fees. It could be used for other purposes. So that's part of what we could incorporate into a final agreement.
Okay.
Why couldn't we use an open space? North Scottsdale has thousands of acres of open area. South Scottsdale needs an open area. We don't need more buildings and stuff and traffic. North Scottsdale has just thousands of acres of open space for people. We need more open space in South Scottsdale.
So I hear your concern, and folks, we're not going to do any more questions, because if we don't, it's going to be wicked late. And I've said that. So I'm just going to, then we'll move on. We are a school district. We're not the city of Scottsdale. Okay, we're completely different entities. Okay, so that is a valid concern, but I would tell you, take that concern to your council member, go talk to the city of Scottsdale and really harp on that, because that's just not something as a school district that we do. Okay, so I know there are more questions. I know we have them, okay? And if you have any more questions, please feel free to email them. Jen Hall is in the back. She'll be able to take your information, or you can get my information. You can go ahead and send emails and we will get them answered, okay? But to respect everybody's time, since it's almost 8:30, we're gonna move forward, okay? All right, so this is the end. Now what I'm gonna ask my IT guys in the back is to disconnect the projector. Thank you. So the next slide, if you're on your smartphone, on your device, you should have a voting button. If you don't have a voting button on it, when you're connected to that, let me know. So if you were on that Mentee site, you should be on it. So do you have it? Yep. So go to. Go to next question. Hey, can you, is it showing up as a vote? Can you put it back up, IT guys, please, on the projector? So I want to keep it kind of secret until everybody sees it.
Thank you.
Ah, not secret anymore. Okay, so everybody should be voting now. You should be able to see that. Now, if you're not voting because you don't have a smartphone, again, what I'm going to ask, do we have, Jen, do you have a means? Jen, I do. Gatlin, you do? So if you don't have a smartphone that you can use to vote, what I'm going to ask that you do is form a very nice socially distanced line in front of Gatlin here. Gatlin, go ahead and raise your hand, and he will take your vote, okay? Go ahead and pull up your camera. Okay, and then point it right at that thing. Go ahead. Oop, 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 whoop. Ah, other way. There we go. Yep. There we go. You're welcome. And if anybody needs help, please come find me. I'll help you.
Thank you. Can I get your card or contact info? Not necessarily for you, but I just had some thoughts about items you could put in the minutes.
Yeah, so smenzel@susd.org. So if you do that, email it to me. That's the best way to do it. Then I can mess on. Thank you. Yeah,
Thank you. Did you say there's someone from Rose Law?
in the back, on that black mask.
Oh, that's okay, cool. Thank you.
Selling of property, like renting or that comment right there.
I know you're thinking about hard ass. I told you that you have.
Right.
So are we gonna handle the next meeting better? Because otherwise, that same hate you got tonight, no. If people are talking about the resource center, they'll come back and